Now let's talk about how things were celebrated by the Gaelic and Celtic people on Halloween. The most important thing probably was they had great big bonfires. Now these bonfires were created from something called a need fire. The need fire was made from a person rubbing sticks together or breaking rocks with tinder. And they did this because they wanted to extinguish all of the other fires. They didn't start it from another fire. And they wanted to make it fresh and new because it was like a cleansing, which created protection for the people. So they started all the fires that year from that one fire, the need fire, and they created great big bonfires. The next thing that they did is they gave sacrifices to the fairies and the gods and their kin that had passed. Now these sacrifices, most people think sacrifice, they think people that are sacrificing people, but it was actually animals typically. And they usually ate the flesh of the animals after their spirits were given to the gods and the fairies and their kin that had passed. Another thing that they did, obviously, with what I just told you, they liked to feast, and they had great big parties, and they'd get really drunk. And the other important part of it is that they would leave seats open with food set for their dead relatives, because they believed that they would come back at this time of year and eat and drink and party and have fun with them all together. So another thing that the Celts and the Gaelic people would do that we still do today is the tradition of going door to door. They would dress up in costumes, and it was called mumming, where they would go and they would act out plays, they would sing songs, and it was a way for them to connect with their neighbors. And then if they did well, their neighbors would give them treats, and they would give them extra treats to go and take to the big bonfires to sacrifice to their ancestors and the gods and the fairies. Another thing they would do is called divination, and some of this still is part of our traditions today. They would use things like apples, where they would write someone's name on an apple, and then they would put all the apples together, and then another person would go and bite into the apples, like bobbing for apples, and whoever's apple came out, that was the person that they were going to marry. So they did little fun games like that, but it was very serious for them because they really believed in it. It was part of their whole New Year's celebration that they would figure out what was going to happen for the next year. So now let's figure out how the Christians celebrated it. The Christians like to celebrate it on All Saints' Day by going to church and lighting candles and honoring the saints. The second thing that they really liked to do was go to the graveyards, and they would lay candles on the graves of their relatives that had passed away. Now, they would also take things called soul cakes that they got from going door to door. So they actually carried on the door-to-door tradition, and they carried on the tradition of costumes. They wore costumes because they wanted to scare away the evil spirits that they thought came out at this time of year. And that's probably a little bit of a crossover from the pagan times. But they just changed it so it was bad spirits instead of making things more comfortable for the spirits that decided to come around. And so, as I said, they liked to go door to door, and this was a way for Christians still to connect up with their neighbors. They would actually invite people in. It became more of a popular thing for children to go door to door as well. And so adults and children were able to commingle, and it was a lot of fun. They'd make food for them, they'd feast together, and they would, instead of doing big plays like the pagans did, they would read from the Bible and they'd sing songs about the Bible. So let's look at this one more time, everyone. From about 6,000 years ago, the traditions of Halloween began as Samhain, and they moved through the ages and changed with the people as they changed their ideas about religion. So it was originally believed to be a pagan celebration that became very much a Christian celebration as well. So the modern American holiday that we celebrate, that we call Halloween, is actually a fusion of pagan and Christian beliefs. So when you go out there next time, go have fun and have a wonderful Happy New Year celebration, and Happy Halloween. Bye-bye, everyone.